All right, I'm ready.
Sick.
You ready?
I'm ready.
I feel like we need like a drum riff or something to really get into it.
Yeah.
You add that in.
I can add something in, maybe. I'll try
We
something.
need theme music. That's what we need.
Yeah, we do need theme music.
That's fine.
I'll get working on
It's got to be something Kanye related, right?
that.
Anyway.
The other day I recorded, I was like playing along with Father Stretch My Hands, and I did like a whole like acoustic guitar bit. It's terrible. It sounds awful. But maybe I'll put it on in the background.
I think you should. It doesn't really matter how it sounds.
Subject everyone to it.
Exactly. Okay. Are you ready? You want to count me down or something?
Oh, I thought we were in it.
Are we? Is this it? Is that
we
it?
could be in it. We could.
I guess we're rolling then.
All
Anyway,
right.
This is season 2 of Smokified in a way. Mostly unintentionally season 2.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I mean, a lot has happened since our last episode. Think about it. I was thinking about it. That last episode was like August 2019. That was more than 2 years ago.
That's nuts to think about. Pre-pandemic.
Yeah, think about it. I was still in school, and I think you were starting your master's.
Yeah, that's nuts to think about. I got a whole degree in that time.
You got a degree.
You got a whole degree in that time.
I got a degree in a job. We're just out here raw dogging life. So, I'm happy for me. I'm happy for you, of course.
Yeah.
You're living in San Diego, which is a little better than me being stuck in Cleveland, but
Cleveland's nice, man. I miss it. I gotta get back.
Don't say that. You don't mean that.
No, I do mean that. I mean that for only certain months of the year, though.
Yeah, that's fair. It's starting to get chilly. The weather here dropped from like 60 degrees to like 20, and I think I got sick because of that. That's what I'm gonna blame it on.
Same.
Horrific immune system and constant clubbing. But that's besides the point. Anyways, what else is up with you, Tate? What's new? What's going on in your life?
I don't know, man. I didn't really prepare anything to say as the update. I feel like you covered most of the update, but
that's it.
Yeah, I feel like my music, my tastes have expanded since season 1. I feel like well, just for one too. Also, our first pass at this, you introduced me to Young Thug, who appears on the album that you recommended to me today, and just having that knowledge, I feel like having some of the knowledge of the musicians that you introduced me to expanded everything I know now.
That's great, because I feel we send each other a lot of music, so I feel like even though we didn't do an official episode over the last couple of years, I think we both realized our tastes have evolved to to a certain extent. So that is interesting. Mine has certainly evolved quite a bit. I used to listen to, I still do, obviously. I listen to a lot of heavy rap, a lot of we'll talk about it later, but a lot of like Young Thug, Travis Scott, stuff like that. And then I've sort of shifted a little softer than that lately, which is, I think, good. But has just allowed me to get into more music in general. So yeah, I don't know. It's been an eventful couple of years.
Yeah, for sure.
But we're back. We're ready to get it.
We're back. Post mid-pandemic. Who's to say anymore?
Yeah.
It's ongoing life.
Constantly ongoing. Yeah. Who knows when it'll end? If it'll end. I don't know. But anyways, we're good. So I don't know. Where do we go from here?
I guess that's kind of the theme of today's recommendations, right?
That is true. Yeah.
We usually.
And go ahead.
What's that? Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, just to refresh, it's like the concept here is that we choose a theme of music and we recommend an album based on that theme to each other. So this theme was albums released during the pandemic, and we strayed away from like major, like huge releases, like Donda and Certified Lover Boy were on the list of albums that came out during the pandemic, but that's just a different kind of sensibility, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the theme. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess we can get into what we recommended each other, right?
Sure.
So my first thought when I thought about pandemic releases was the album I gave you, which was Savage Mode 2 by 21 Savage and Metro Boomin. And the reason that was the first thing that came to mind was because I played it constantly when it came out. Because I was living at home with my parents with nothing else to do besides listen to music all the time mostly and play video games. So I would just have that album on repeat and just be, doing whatever, playing Rocket League, Madden, whatever. So it got a lot of run for me. And so I thought, especially because I knew you had listened to that Young Thug album before, so I thought this would be an interesting progression. And it is definitely one of the more polished 21 Savage releases, so I think it was a good fit for you. Anyway, so that was why I gave that to you.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are we gonna talk about Savage Mode 2 first, or should I also introduce?
I think you should also introduce your album.
All right, cool. Yeah, so the album that I recommended was Like Nirvana by Cub Sport. I had like a long list of albums that came out during the pandemic, but some that like I just didn't listen to as much as others, and some that have gotten plenty of press that like I feel like a lot of the records deserve the press they got, but they've been talked enough about. Yeah, this was, I thought, the album that you would also be most interested in, just based on type of genre. It's like pop music, but pretty heavily inspired by hip hop landscape today, I would say, or the R&B landscape. Yeah, it was also released during the pandemic, and I felt like it just didn't get enough traction, so I felt like I need to spread the word about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you just said. So I think we'll get into that in a minute. But I think
for sure.
I think we should start talking about Savage Mode 2, if that's cool with you, because
hell yeah,
I think you have a lot to say. I have a lot of opinions on this album.
I'm excited to hear your opinions. I mean, we've been texting back and forth with both of the albums, but like,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm not heavily opinionated on this album, so I'm interested to know. I mean, I guess I do like it to give a sneak preview, but.
Right. Well, let's get into it, and then a little backstory on Savage Mode 2, or I guess a little background. Savage Mode 2, as the name suggests, is a sequel to Savage Mode 1, which is also a project by 21 Savage and producer Metro Boomin. The two of them have had a very productive relationship over the course of their careers, constantly making music together, constantly making really good music together, I would say as well. And so Savage Mode 1 was very much critically acclaimed. A lot of people liked it, and it was a big step up for 21 Savage in general from his stuff prior to that. And so as a result, this project, when it came out, it had a pretty high bar to meet in terms of expectations. And in my opinion, I thought it met it pretty well. But, I won't go into how I feel about Savage Mode 1, although that is one of my favorite projects. But yeah, I mean, this is a really cool album, very dark, menacing, and let's talk
Good
about
word for it, menacing.
Yeah. So Tate, tell me what your first impressions of it were.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I really enjoyed it. It was I feel like the best way to describe it is just like very entertaining. I feel like every track, even the ones that were like I feel like there's a good chunk that maybe are more forgettable than others, but even that, like, nothing was like outright bad, and there's certainly lyrics or I don't know, beats or melodies at some point that were just interesting or entertaining to listen to. There's a few tracks we can get into it at some point, but like I wasn't a huge fan of Mr. Right Now, which I think was, I don't know if that was the lead single or one of the singles, but I could see why it's popular, or why it would have been released as a single, even though I wasn't a huge fan of it. And then I have like a few specific gripes here and there, but I mean, yeah, generally I really liked it. Good stuff. Yeah. I want to know what's your like. I don't know if it's specific opinions that you have or what is your general opinion on the album?
I think I agree with you on the whole. That was a pretty good take on it. There are two songs. Well, I would say there's one song I really dislike, and then there's another song that I'm not a big fan of. One of them is Mr. Right Now. I cannot.
You don't like it?
I hate it so much because it feels.
I skip it every time.
You should, because I think it sucks, to be honest. I think it feels super out of place in terms of the rest.
No, I 100% agree with that. Out of place is a good way to put it, because it's like, I'm looking at my notes right now. Just feels out of place amongst the other darker timbre songs. Like, and it also I feel like the whole song 21 Savage is like mimicking just generally Drake's intonation, and then Drake shows up, and I kind of feel like Drake upstages him. Like, I don't even usually like Drake that much, but he like kills it on this track. I feel like it's more of a Drake track than it is like a 21 Savage track, and I don't know. To me, that kind of kills the vibe or it doesn't kill the vibe. It's not enough to kill the vibe, but it's a blemish on the track list, I think.
I 100% agree, and I think even more so when you put it in the context of the song before it, which is called Glock in My Lap, and then you have 21 Savage and Drake double teaming like what is essentially a love song, and I'm like, what the hell are we doing here?
No, that's a good point too. Like, Runnin' and Glock in My Lap are two pretty hard songs, right off the get-go, and then it's just a switch up, which I guess it leads you into rich people shit, which is a different lyrical switch up, but I still think even without it would have been fine. So
yeah, I totally agree, and I think it's not surprising that it ended up on the album, because you can't turn down a Drake feature, one,
right,
and second, it's just so much. You're gonna get so many more streams just because of it, So I do get it. I just think it, like we said, just out of place.
One note on this song though that I thought was interesting is in the song, just generally, I'm not aware of any music, or not any music, many songs that are just outright mentioning the pandemic, or like consciously mentioning the pandemic. And one of the lines in the song is like, stuck with my girl in quarantine or something like that, which I thought was interesting. I thought that was cool, especially leading in with our theme. But I'm not aware of any other songs. Like, Kanye just released that outtake, Life of the Party, and I think he mentions pandemic in like passing, but it's like the only other thing that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's others, but
I've heard a couple rap songs just like mention it, and I think and they're mostly like singles and stuff, not really stuff that's on an album, but it's just a quick, easy line, sneak in a big word. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's true too. With rap, you probably have more of an ability to play around with that, because you got just more words to fill in. So that makes sense. Your whole song doesn't have to be about a pandemic to mention a pandemic.
Exactly. Yeah, but I think one thing I want to note on this album, which I'm sure you probably caught notice of as well, just the production on this album is so good. And I don't know, you know me, I have like my ear gravitates towards those beats and kind of the rhythmic nature of songs, and you'd be hard pressed to find a beat on this album that's not great, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I mean it's kind of funny, but like just the concept of the album of like two like musicians who are great at their craft coming together and both like playing off of each other really well. That I feel like that's what fuck, why can't I think of his name? The guy that narrates the yeah, Morgan Freeman. Like like the whole intro track I feel like honestly sums up the album pretty well.
Yeah.
But what was I gonna say? Yeah, no, I mean the beats are just as much as it's fun to listen to 21 Savage and just his flow and some of his lyrics, which I also find his lyrics like super funny. We can get into that, but yeah, no, the melodies, the beats are so good. They're really very good. And I was not actually super impressed by Runnin' the first time I listened to it, the like opening real track or song. It just kind of sounded like any trap song to me, I guess. But then when Glock in My Lap came up, that's when I would like it first caught my eye, because first there's the strings on the pre-chorus, and then in the chorus there's like, I don't know if it's organ or keys or what, but there, and it's just subtle touches of like different instrumentality that works really well, and you wouldn't expect it to for such I guess hardcore music. And in a way, when you listen to like old like gangster rap from like 80s or 90s or something, there is more instrumentality to it. I don't know if it's just like the era or what, but in a way this also made like the whole album feel almost like there's like elements of a throwback vibe to it, you know? Like there's like, for example, on Rich People Shit, like it sounds like almost like, because of the drum beat, like I don't know what kind of drum machine he's using, but some of those notes, it sounds like it's like a throwback to like an 80s or 90s sounding like R&B song or something. And then there's another song that I forget the name of it, but there's like heavy horns in the song. It sounds like an early Thousands song or something. And like, yeah, I don't know, just there's a good array of beats and melodies, and it's nice. It's just all really well done.
I think yeah, I mean, like I said, the production always catches my ear, and then the thing with Metro Boomin's production in particular, I feel as though he approaches things very differently than most producers do. And I mean, this is just my opinion, of course, but there are very few beats that come out these days where you can listen to it and find something new in it every time, I feel. And so much of the production on this is just so lavish. There's just so much to listen to every time. Like Glock in My Lap, so many different layers to that song, just from a production standpoint. So it's really interesting in that way. And so that is really what keeps me coming back to it every time. And you know, I've listened to a lot of his production over the years as well, and it just ages incredibly. You know, like beats that he made, you know, 5-10 years ago are still getting, you know, they still sound great today.
Yeah.
And in an era where, you know, you're able to just like pump out music constantly, that's pretty rare, I feel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say some of my favorite beats on this album would definitely be Rich People Shit. That is, I mean, that is probably one of my favorite I've ever heard.
Yeah, I honestly, same. That could go up there for me. It's a just beat and melody, and like the whole song is just a well crafted song. It's definitely my favorite song in the album. Yeah.
And I think what is really cool about not only that song but the album in general is like the beats and the subject matter go so well together.
Yeah,
Like you see the song title, Rich People Shit, and you're like, okay, let's see what it is, and you turn it on, and immediately it just sounds
sounds like, you know, that's another like thing that I was thinking of, is not only do our albums fit the theme for this week, but also I feel like both the title and like the album covers for our albums just fit the albums perfectly, but like I don't know, Savage Mode I feel like fits. Like when you look at the album cover, you look at the title of the album, the title of the song, and you listen to it, it's like this is cohesive. Like this.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just all definitely goes together pretty well.
Oh yeah, 100%. And yeah, I mean, I I have so many things to say about this album, but I think another thing I want to point out, and I wanted to see what your thoughts on it were that this album is, the production is so lavish. Like I said, you have so much going on. You have 21 Savage. He gets really technical with his flows at a certain point, and then you have Morgan Freeman jumping in now and then to narrate. And then I would say even there's bits and pieces of the production that just feel so cinematic, and like the whole album feels that way as a result.
Yeah.
There like little orchestral elements or like strings here and there, and it's like wow, like just framing everything so well. And so that was something that the more I listened to the album, the more I caught on to it. I was like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah, I like that Morgan Freeman is like the tying piece together, but then there's also, aside from that, like different skits and samples that like add to that like cinematic element, like you're saying. Like at the end of Mr. Right Now into Rich People Shit, there's like some skit, ladies talking, and honestly it's just funny. Like I don't even know what she's saying. Like she says like do you think I'm dumb, stupid, or slow or something, and like the way she says it's just like
she said, this world is about
money and pussy.
Figure that out.
You gotta figure it out.
Better off you'll be. And I was like, you know what? Real shit. Yeah, I love that skit so much.
Yeah. And then also, not really a skit, but a sample, Many Men, the 50 Cent sample at the end is really good. And he's also like, he like one of the lines is like, I feel like 50. And then like at the end, he's got that sample and it works really well. Yeah, I don't know.
I love Many Men was also another song I wanted to talk about because I think that's probably my second favorite song on this album because again the production is insane. 21 Savage is great, and then the little nod to 50 I really like. I don't know. I'm glad you like that piece as well. That was good.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a good moment on the album.
Yeah, and then I think and I guess this is also in line with the what we had said earlier about everything kind of being pretty cohesive. But the last song on the album, Said and Done, I thought just wrapped up everything so well.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a great closing track.
Exactly, and it sounds like a closing track. Like it's so interesting because like the whole album is like so dark and like
and then that one's kind of light.
Yeah, it's like
light. It's light in a good way. It's not light in a Mr. Right Now way. Right. it's hopeful is a good word, I guess. It's something about it just sounds brighter and like definitely a solid closing track there.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know. I think you said Mr. Right Now is one of the songs you didn't like, and then you said there's another.
Yeah. And I think I had texted you about it, but Stepping on People.
Okay. Oh wait, that's the song. That's the song. That's the song with the horns. That's like kind of, and that's fair. It it sounds like a mix between like I don't know, an old rap song from like the early 80s and like the beats kind of sound like something from the early thousands or something, but it almost sounds like a novelty song. So I could see why someone wouldn't like it. I think it's fun whenever I put it on. It feels like I'm listening. Like I don't know. I still enjoy it, but I could see why you wouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, it's like objectively, it's not a bad song. Like I do like listening to it every now and then, but I think again it just like feels slightly out of place for me.
Okay, that's fair. That's definitely fair.
Rest of the album, but I mean, in a vacuum, like if I hear that song, I'm like, okay, I kind of get like if it wasn't in the context of the rest of the album, I'd be like, okay, like I get what is trying to be accomplished with this song, but
yeah,
I don't know, but
yeah, it's a little bit campy in nature.
I don't dislike that song. I really dislike Mr. Right Now. I don't like that song, and I hear it a lot.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I've actually never I hadn't heard any of the songs on this album before. But that said, the other day I was at the gym and I heard like some trap song playing. I was like, wait a second, is that 21 Savage? And then like I seried it and like yeah, 21 Savage, Metro Boomin. It was off of like Not All Heroes Wear Capes or whatever, which I haven't listened to yet. But that's another thing. Like I've just looked through the discography of 21 Savage and Metro Boomin, and like they have the best album covers. Like this album cover is great too in its own way. It's a little bit campy, but like
I think that's the point. I'd like to think that's the point though.
No, I agree. I think it fits the album perfectly. But there's another one, I forget the name of it, but like there's like a dog mid bark and you like see it's
warning.
like
yeah.
What's that?
Without Warning.
Yeah, Without Warning, which also that's just like a great album name, great album cover.
Oh my goodness.
And like I don't know. I appreciate that when an artist like puts the time into thinking through all that as well. So it's cool seeing that. But yeah.
I agree. And I think that like I mean this is there's a lot to talk about with 21 Savage just by himself. But I think this album you know, being that it is a sequel from Savage Mode 1, you know, it's hard not to compare it to that. And I like I said, that is one of my favorite albums ever.
Which I haven't listened to yet. I still have to.
And I think that this album shows a lot of the growth that 21 Savage has made, not necessarily as a person, because the subject matter is kind of the same. I mean, it's a tape called Savage Mode, right? Like you can't expect the whole.
Right.
But just the way he raps, and in the original Savage Mode, a lot of his flows were generally like slower, just kind of like riding the beat. And then here, like he goes in like quite a bit. You know, there's a lot of like quick flows, and he's just going like nonstop, and it's kind of cool to see.
Yeah.
Kind of it's the way that he's grown up in that way. So I really enjoy seeing that part of him.
That's definitely cool. I'll have to check out the first Savage Mode to like see his progression there.
Absolutely.
Would you say that he's always adding in funny lines in his songs?
He's got quite a bit, I'll be honest.
I feel like he's got a good sense of humor, and I feel like it balances well. I mean, like we've said, like the sound of this album is pretty dark, but like he'll have some lines that are just like laugh out loud funny, honestly.
I can think of just off the top of my head, like not even thinking too hard, I can think of like 21 Savage lines that make me crack up every time I hear them. And one of them, I forget what song it is. He says like, I nut on her face, call her baby face. So I'm like, what?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
and then and there was another one. He's like, my bitch got buns, call her Patty. Like Patrick. Like crack patties, I guess. I was like, wow, that's kind of hard. I'm not gonna lie. Anyway, so it's like, yeah, no, he does do that every now and then, which I do really like, you know.
Yeah.
I
feel like it was just like sprinkled throughout, like on Glock in my lap on the chorus, like he's just like saying things, and one of the things he says is like money tall Shaq, and like he says like Chuck E. Cheese rat.
Yeah.
And then like later he's also got and Snitches and Rats. He tells like the story of like the two like brothers who like ratted on each other, and he's like, I call them Siamese rats.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, no, I do like that a lot. I think, you know, I've seen a couple 21 Savage interviews. I don't think the dude takes himself too seriously, which is like maybe a little surprising given the way he raps. But like, I don't know, man. He's a smart dude. I think he's a lot smarter than most people give him credit for. Let's not forget, he was also a UK citizen living in the US. You know, can't forget.
I didn't know that. Did not know that.
Yeah, it's the whole thing. He almost got deported. Back to
wow.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So then let's wrap this up a little bit, and since we got a whole other album to talk about.
That's true. I do have one gripe that I'm interested to know your opinion on, though. And that's the use of producer tags,
Mm.
which I'm fine with a producer tag every once in a while, and especially when it's used like musically, which I feel like that is the intention of Metro Boomin. I mean, especially when like the first song that I heard that I was probably consciously aware of him in was Father Stretch My Hands.
Oh yeah.
And
Well,
like the beat drop, he has this producer tag, it's perfectly timed, and it sounds really cool. There's times on this album where that same exact producer tag is used in line with the beat, and it feels awkward to me, and like it feels forced, and it's like I already know I'm listening to a Metro Boomin album. Like I don't need to hear the producer tag. There are moments when it works, like on Rich People Shit. Like I think one of his producer tags is used at the very beginning, and it's like it's slow paced, but like I find myself singing along to it, like, or humming along to it, like when it comes in. So like in that case it works, but in most of the cases on the album, I just kind of felt like this didn't need to be here. Like I already know who produced it, and it's strong enough on its own, you know?
That's fair. I think like generally speaking, I love hearing producer tags. I think it's something that I look for, to be honest. Like I said, that's just mostly because of my personal preference. Because I listen to beats like constantly. Like I'm mostly listening for the beat if I listen to a song, and so I just like knowing who produced it. Right. So yeah, if you're if you're going straight into an album and listening to it purposefully, then I guess I can see how it would be, slightly annoying. Like, yeah, like I know who I'm listening to, that's fine. But I mean, if that song's just like coming on, you haven't heard it before, and you hear a Metro Boomin tag, like if I hear a Metro Boomin tag on a sound I haven't heard before, I'm like, fuck yeah, like let's go,
That's true. That's true.
Generally, like the tags are good because producers really don't get the appreciation I feel like they deserve. So I'm never gonna talk bad about a guy putting in his tag, to be honest. Like that, and I look for it. So I don't know. That's just
fair. That's fair. I mean, I totally hear that too, especially for if it's not your work that like your name isn't on. Like you listen to this on whatever streaming service, it's gonna say Metro Boomin, but like listen to Father Stretch My Hand, it's not gonna say that. You have to listen to the producer tag. So like in that case, totally makes sense too, just from a practical standpoint. So
yeah. And it's also like a branding thing, like Metro Boomin has so many like iconic producer tags, and like a lot of other do too. So it just like it's something for them to kind of build a fan base around in a way. And then also it's like, I don't know, you hear like a Metro Boomin tag, like a Kenny Beats tag, like C-Note, like whatever, it's just I don't know. It's something I look for, and I'm sure other people do too. So I do get what you're saying though. So I totally understand.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So then, real quick, favorite songs? Maybe like a top 3, if you have more than 2.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, Rich People Shit, definitely. Many Men. I like Snitches and Rats. Oh, Glock in My Lap for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the album, like on the first half of the album, there are some really strong songs. The second half of the album, I don't really have any gripes with any of the songs in particular. Just some of them are a little bit forgettable, I would say, or just songs I probably won't consciously think to look back at, except maybe Said and Done as well. That's a good closing track. But
yeah, I would say like the first like 7-8 songs are just like insane. If you ended that album after Snitches and Rats, like, I mean that's still like a top tier album in my opinion. And it probably would have matched the length of the first Savage Mode.
Okay, it's shorter.
This is definitely a little longer because I think Savage Mode 1, it's only like 9 songs.
Gotcha.
So yeah, cool. All right, should we talk about like Nirvana now?
Sure. Yeah. So okay. The theme was pandemic albums. And Like Nirvana is the latest album from the Australian indie pop band Cub Sport, and it was released during the pandemic. It didn't get much mainstream traction, not at least that I'm aware of, and of course, like, they weren't able to tour. So like I said earlier, like, I just kind of feel the need to, like, just tell people about this album, because I think it's good. I think it's really good and deserves love. I think I originally described it to you as like Frank Ocean meets Vampire Weekend, though I'm not really sure I stand by that anymore. I don't think it's a perfect description, but I think the title, again, like, just like Savage Mode too, the title for this album fits it perfectly. Like, when you're listening to it, it sounds like Nirvana. Like, it sounds very blissful. It's very, like, reverby, emotional, warm sounding pop songs, and showcases the vocals of the lead singer Tim Nelson. So yeah, just sounds great, to me at least. What did you think of the album?
Yeah, so I on the whole, I like this album. I like it a lot more than I thought I would too. There were a lot of elements of it which I could maybe not relate to, but like kind of draw, similarity between the music I typically listen to and this. A lot of Kanye influence, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like a lot, which I loved. And it was like good Kanye influence, kind of nostalgic Kanye, which it was like kind of cool to see as well. And then yeah, I caught a lot of Frank Ocean vibes as well, and it was just a lot of kind of alternative R&B type feel to it as well, which I really like. And then of course, like you mentioned, a lot of reverb, which I am also drawn to. So on the whole, really interesting album. And whenever you give me an album, I try to listen to the lyrics pretty closely, because I know that's something you try to look for. And it was, I didn't try to read too much about this album just to try to formulate my own opinions, but I thought it was really interesting, just like how open and like vulnerable kind of that the lead singer is when he's talking about these kinds of things. And I thought that was kind of a common theme throughout the album. And so I have a lot of thoughts once I like got to the end. But I don't know. There were a lot of songs I liked on this album, and it was, again, primarily due to, the really like atmospheric, spacey kind of production behind it, which I really liked. But then also, the lead singer, he's using his voice as an instrument in his own way, So
right.
It was just kind of it was really cool.
His voice, I feel like, on this album is insane. Like, there are times when I was like listening in the car, and I don't have a great voice, but I can usually sing along with a song. But like this, there's some notes that he hits that I'm like, what the heck? And like, going back to the comparison between him and Frank Ocean, like, there's a lot of Frank Ocean songs where that happens too, where he gets like really high, and I just like can't sing along. Also, to the Kanye point, like, especially I can't remember the name of the opening track. I want to say it's Confessions or something. But there's that whole like auto-tune yelling part at the end, which, like, that's just so Kanye. To me, at times it is a little bit too much on the nose, like too close to them, if I were to critique the album at all. But at the very least, it like draws from really interesting parts of pop music today, I thought. And yeah. What were some tracks that you liked? Some tracks you didn't like, if any?
There were honestly no tracks that I disliked. I found something to like about all of them. If I was to say favorites, I would say Confessions I really liked. In part because of the kind of Kanye tangent that he went on towards the end, but also the subject matter was kind of interesting too. He's just like kind of throwing his insecurities at you, which is kind of, not something you typically see. Break Me Down was another one. I think that was a feature with Mallrat.
With Mallrat, right.
Yeah. And I think I had told you about that song. I really like that song.
And it's funny. I like that song too, but I think like the first impression that you had when you texted me was like, oh, I wish there was more drums. And
Yeah.
that song like doesn't have many drums, so I was
Yeah.
surprised to hear that that you liked that one. I agree. The feature's really nice on that
Yeah.
song too.
Exactly. Yeah, that song was like it was kind of like a tease because I felt like it was building up to drums the whole
Mm.
time, and then I just didn't get
Hmm.
it. It's like so. But yeah, no, I did enjoy that song a lot.
Yeah.
Nirvana, I thought was an interesting song, because it that kind of gave me what I expected from the Mallrats song "Break Me
Okay.
Down," because
Which
the
I
drum
think that
is like
song's like right
aggressive.
after, right?
Yeah, yeah, and
Okay.
it like you have like those drums like steadily building up until it's kind of drowning out the vocals, which I thought was
Hmm.
interesting. And I cut, is he? I don't know. Maybe he's trying to make some kind of metaphor here. I'm not too smart. I'm not smart enough to like understand. But anyways, I thought it was a good song and I enjoyed
Yeah.
it. Um,
It was
and
that the song too. I don't know if you had this
then-
written down. I forgot to write a note about this, but on one of the songs, something really interesting happens where the beat of the song, like the tempo, gets faster and then
Yeah,
gets slower. Was that was that song?
I think it was. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah, and which the first time I listened to it, I remember I just like felt anxiety hearing that because like it's
yeah,
not something you normally hear. Like the song's getting faster and faster. It's not progressive. It's like on the end of the measure. It's like okay, it's a new tempo. Okay, it's a new tempo, and it's like it it's interesting. Yeah, and to your point of it playing into like how it's just like building up the whole time. It is like perhaps they are saying something with that. I wouldn't be surprised.
right. Yeah, no, I thought that was a great song. Saint was another one.
Hmm.
A lot of Frank Ocean influence on that song. I
Yeah.
really like that. And then I think my favorite song would probably be 18.
18 is one of my favorites as well,
Yeah, because
if
like,
not my favorite.
even this whole time, I listened to this album just before we started talking again.
Hmm.
But like, even now, like that song is still like replaying in my head.
Yeah.
It's the
I feel
chorus.
like just that chorus of
Yeah,
like the high notes that he hits and that like there's like
violin or something.
I think it's all vocals, but I don't even know. Like there's just well his voice gets so high and then there's someone
Yeah.
like yelling like oh in the background and it just like
Hmm.
the reverb of
Yeah.
it all just makes it sound like I
Yes.
don't know, like suffocating in a way, but in a good way.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's
and
just so big. There's so,
yeah,
really feel how
very
big it is.
grand. Yeah.
Exactly. And then there's I mentioned it, but there's like a violin or some kind of like strings that kind of play like very quick, but
Yeah.
just like during every chorus. I don't know, it just gets me every time.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it so
Yeah.
much.
It's such a good melody.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, definitely
It's
very earwormy. Like
yeah,
it
exactly.
just stays in your head.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, someone's listening to this and hasn't listened to that song, I would tell them to listen to that song. So it's definitely something I would come back to as well. But
Yeah.
we'll get into that in a bit.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah. So I kind of want to hear your take on the album because I've
Yeah.
given a lot of opinions on my end, but
It's funny, like all the songs that you mentioned, I like a lot of the songs that you mentioned, with the exception of 18 though, none of them were on my highlights list.
mm,
Um, my highlights were I Feel Like I'm Changing, which that's like more of a simple, just kind of like an indie pop song. Um, but I really love the chorus on it. That's another song that like I feel like perfectly fits in with the title, like Nirvana. Like he's saying like he feels like he is high and like he is changing, but in a more positive light. And yeah, it's just a really pleasant song that again the chorus just like keeps coming back in my head. Um, I think if not 18, then my favorite song on the album would be Drive, um, which I think was one of the singles from the album. Um, but that one I could see maybe someone being turned off by the beginning of it, as actually I was originally, because his voice is really high, It's like tuned up, some vocal changing there, like pitch correction or something, which is something that, Frank Ocean has done, Tyler, the Creator, has done, they're musicians today. But to the point that his voice sounds like a woman's voice at first, and then later in the song sounds like a man's voice. And at times they're played over each other and it sounds ambiguous. And I like that a lot. It sounds really cool the way it was done. And I feel like it's just a very just simple love song. And I feel like it's just very to the point and like just, very, very well done. I also like Be Your Man, which I could also see someone not being a huge fan of that song because it's I was playing this song in the car with my girlfriend, and I think she likes the song, but she also mentioned that it's kind of sounded like an 80s like power pop song or something where like there's like a super chorus, or what do they call it, a power chorus or something. It kind of sounds like that, but I think it's done in a really tasteful way. And then, you mentioned Saint. I really like Saint. And I also really like 18 and Be Your Angel. I really like that song a lot. There's like the acoustic guitar or something in the beginning of that song. It's just another pleasant song. I feel like that's the way I would describe like every song in the album is pleasant.
Yeah, and that's kind of why, I don't dislike any songs. Like there's something to like about every song, whether it was the production or just how he was using his voice or what he was talking about. There was always something you can get out of it, which honestly doesn't really happen when you listen to many albums. So that was pretty neat. I did enjoy that, and all of the songs you mentioned, I had notes for every song, but like I said, it wasn't that I disliked them. It was just that I thought other ones were better. That's
right. Yeah.
So. Sure. But yeah, I don't know. I wanted your opinion on the last song, Grand Canyon, if you had any thoughts on that one.
The one thing that I find, like, I mean, obviously it's a good song as well, but something that always sticks in my head is that I think it's interesting. This is just, I guess, a general comment, not necessarily just about them, but when any artist does this, they're an Australian band and they're writing a song about a national monument or a national park in the US. Right. Which, I think that's interesting. And it's an interesting also to place that at the end of the album. I'm not sure that even any of that has to do with the theme of the album or anything, but I think also, though, just thinking of what the Grand Canyon represents, and I've never been, but my understanding of like how beautiful it is and how grand it is, there is some like Nirvana-esque and grand aspect to it that you feel throughout the album. So it's an interesting just natural location to mention on an album like this. But what specific notes do you have on it?
Well, I just thought it was interesting because, like, since it is the last song of the album, I went to look at the lyrics a little closer, and I thought it was interesting. So there are a couple of lines that I thought were particularly interesting, which I guess is, kind of the whole song. It's not a very long song. He says, "You're a mountain baby, Grand Canyon. You hold all the power. If you believe it, then you can, too much of an angel to be held down. Your battles, too much of an angel to be held down." So I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know. I didn't really know what to make of it, to be honest, because first of all, I suck at finding meaning in albums. That is something I'm terrible at. I try to be good at it. I'm not. But I don't know. I thought it was interesting because, the whole album has a lot of themes of like vulnerability, and kind of just being so open about, like his insecurities or, I don't know, just in general, he's very open. And then he's kind of giving this spiel, and then I thought back to the intro, where he's kind of just saying like, I love you, you know, I would die for you,
Right.
stuff like that. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then, you know, you get to this end saying like, you hold all the power, you know, you're too much of an angel to be held down. And I'm like, okay, like, is he like trying to affirm to like his significant other, like whoever it may be, like, you know, like maybe they're like going through something very serious and he's just trying to tell them like throughout this album, like, you are like nirvana to me. And he's constantly
Right.
talking about like, you know, that kind of feeling and like how in love he is and things like that throughout the album. Is he like trying to show that to another person
Right. Like
before they
this
do something?
album is a showing of love,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
that's a really interesting way to look at it, which I think is, you know, absolutely true. But I think another, if you were to even like take it a step further, that it's like a half-baked theory, but on one of the I think it's on Confessions. One of the lyrics he says is like, I feel like I don't like being my gender, I think was like one of the lines. And there is like a theme of gender dysmorphia on the album. And I also just tied to love is sexuality. So like the
Right.
theme of sexuality too, and just becoming okay with yourself, confessing who you are as a person is in a way telling yourself that you love you and like that you are strong enough to present however you want to present to the world, you know? Um, and so, like, I guess you could look at this album as not only perhaps like love letters to someone, but perhaps love letters to yourself as well. Just like saying, like, you know, I like, I love you for being yourself, you know?
That's awesome.
But
I like that. That's a little fun. I like that a lot. That's cool. Yeah, no, because I was you know, right like literally like 5 minutes before we started talking, you know, I was reading through some of the like genius annotations for this album. And I think there was one that, you know, Cub Sport themselves had done on one of the songs. I forget. I think it was Drive potentially.
mm-hmm.
And then, you know, they were giving like some information on the artist as well. And they mentioned like you know, Tim Nelson is like, I forget how they phrase it, like non-binary, something like
Mm-hmm.
that. So, yeah, so I think that is an interesting kind of aspect when you listen to this album and kind of something you can kind of reference as you're listening to these songs. So I think that's a good take.
Yeah, yeah. I think at the very least, if they were consciously written as love songs for a person, there is that subtextual meaning of like just love for yourself as well and
Right.
being who you are.
Yeah,
But yeah.
absolutely. Awesome.
So yeah, I guess what do you see yourself listening to this album again or recommending it to anyone?
Yeah. So I listened to this album I think like 4 times like through, and then, you know, song will pop up here and there. I still feel like I haven't really listened to it enough. So I
Mm-hmm.
would definitely come back to it, and I probably will, just because again, like there's so many aspects of it that I really enjoy, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so many things that, you know, I mean, the Kanye influence, the Frank Ocean influence, like those are guys I love. So there's a lot that would keep me coming back to this, and I definitely will. Um, so yeah, no, I would definitely come back to this, and I would definitely recommend people to listen to it, because I saw the this is not a well-known band, I would say. You know, I was
Yeah.
looking at their like
I
monthly listen count on Spotify, and it was way lower than I thought it should be.
The way I found out about this band was through Discover Weekly. I whatever I think it's probably their top song on Spotify. I think it's called Hawaiian Party,
Yeah.
which it's a good song, but it's like a kind of typical indie pop song, uh, which like that's not to put it down or anything, but I feel like that song compared to this album is like this album is just on a whole nother plane of like
Right.
how good it is. Um, so yeah, I just feel like just deserves love, you know, for
Yeah.
that reason that they aren't well known.
No, I totally agree. And I, you know, I I had no idea about them until you told me, so I'm glad you did. And I'll probably keep up with their next releases just out of curiosity because, even when you read their like Spotify bio, they talk about the transformation they've gone from local indie band to kind of pop powerhouse, which I think is kind of interesting. They do a lot of really cool stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I'm interested. Like I said, I would definitely come back to this. But yeah, what about you? Would you come back to Savage Mode 2? Would you recommend it to other people? What do you think?
Yeah, the note that I had for Savage Mode was first off, like, I think it's just a solid album. So I think, like, anyone who is like a trap fan, like, for sure I would recommend it to them. But also I would say people who are into like either R&B or rap or like hip hop from the 80s or 90s. I feel like this would be a good way if you're not familiar with modern like trap or rap. Like, this would be a good album to get into that. I wouldn't say this would probably be great for someone who isn't like a rap fan. Like, I can't imagine showing this to like my dad or something and him enjoying it. But he, like, maybe a different album like To Pimp a Butterfly or something like that would be a better album there. But like, this album is just for people who are into the genre already. It's very entertaining and would recommend it to them. And definitely the songs that I said were highlights. I'll be coming back to them for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I'm glad. All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up our discussion.
Yeah. I gotta send you a link after this. I just thought about it. Cub Sport does a cover on I think it's called like a Version or whatever, but I don't know if you've seen this before. Yeah, they do a cover of Ultralight Beam.
Ooh,
it's pretty good too. Yeah, but yeah, I just thought of that. I gotta
say, there's no way that was an accident then.
Oh yeah, they're conscious Kanye fans.
They're big. They must be big Kanye fans, and especially if they're doing a version of his songs. Okay. Yeah, please send that to me. That sounds great. But I guess we can shift into next time what we're going to be looking at. So if you want to go ahead and set the stage, feel free.
Sure. The theme that we came up with is just good album covers, memorable album covers.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I know we have a lot of room for options there, so it's probably a theme we'll do again at some point. But
100%.
But yeah. So my album for you, it's an album that I haven't listened to in a long time, so I don't remember many of the tracks very well. And I have I have absolutely no idea what you're gonna think of it. I hope that there are at least some songs that you'll enjoy. Hopefully it's not a rough experience, because I don't think it's the type of music you've listened to typically. But the name of the album is Live Through This by Hole. And I don't know if you're familiar with Courtney Love, who she is. But she is. What's that?
I know who she is. I'm interested to see where you're going with this.
She's the lead singer of Hole.
Okay.
Yeah. And I feel like, I mean, obviously she's generally considered a controversial figure, whether that's deserved or not. But I think for the landscape of pop music today, especially artists like Billie Eilish or Olivia Rodrigo, who are incorporating elements of like 90s rock today, I think that she's an influence to them. And also it's a solid album from what I remember. Obviously the songs that I remember I really love. But yeah, interested to see what you think. Yeah. Also, the album cover is just, I think even Olivia Rodrigo got into some controversy where she did some promotional photos that looked very similar to the album cover of Live Through This. And then I think there's some kind of Twitter fight or something. I don't know. I'm not on Twitter, so who
Yeah,
knows? But
interesting. Okay.
but
Um, yeah. So I actually didn't. I couldn't pick one before I got here. So I'm just gonna go off the top here. Um,
off the
I'm
top
gonna,
is in the first of the
yeah, the
list there.
first thing that comes to my
Okay.
head here. But there were a lot of ones in the mix. Um, so the one I'm gonna give you is a mixtape actually. Uh,
Okay.
and it is from Vic Mensa. I don't know if you've heard of him.
I haven't.
So Vic Mensa is really interesting to me. So
Rapper?
yes, so when Chance the Rapper, he's also from Chicago. So
Uh-huh.
when Chance the Rapper was, he had that string of mixtapes that were really, really popular before he released Coloring Book.
Hmm.
He released a mixtape called 10 Day, and he
Yeah,
released another one called Acid Rap.
right. I'm
So
familiar with
right around
those
that time,
generally.
hmm?
I'm familiar with those generally.
Yeah. So those are very popular. So Chance the Rapper was seen as a big, like, up and coming guy, but then right alongside with him was Vic Mensa. And then Vic Mensa, for one reason or another, just kind of never really found his groove. But
Hmm.
during that time frame, around that like acid rap era, he released a mixtape that was really, really good. I love it. I haven't listened to it in a long time, but it is called Inane Tape by Vic
Okay.
Mensa. Um, and you see a lot of interesting elements. You can tell that he's very talented, and you can tell there's a lot of influence between him and Chance the Rapper. So I think it'll be an interesting listen for you. Have you listened to much Chance? I forget.
Yeah, I mean vaguely. I mean, my girlfriend Muriel, she's pretty heavily into Chance. She's actually who I know like those mixtapes from. Um, so that I'm definitely familiar with songs, if not by name, like I would know them by melody. Um, and like yeah, just generally enjoy like when he's a feature on a song. But yeah,
Oh, yeah. I think honestly, I think you'll enjoy this one a lot.
cool.
We'll see. I mean, it definitely won't be as polished as some of the other stuff you probably heard, but it is a very enjoyable listen, and there's a lot of cool things to keep an eye out for.
Sweet.
Um,
Well, I'm excited.
but yeah, but I mean, I think that'll just about do it from us. Uh,
Sick.
yeah, I don't know. How do we end this?
I don't know. I thought that went well. I thought that was good.
Fuck yeah. All right. We'll see you next time. That's all I got.
Sick.
Peace.
Goodbye.